So there's this big debate going on social media right now regarding Xbox Series X performance and how does it compare to PlayStation 5 and why developers are not really taking full advantage of Xbox Series X, and we see parity in many games, and all that was started by Digital Foundry asking some very interesting questions. So let's look into this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I would like to talk about Xbox Series X performance and optimization and all that technical stuff. But before I share my thoughts on some of that stuff, I want you to hear something from Digital Foundry. So let me play you a very short part of their podcast that they had a couple of I guess days ago and stuff, where they talk about some of the Xbox Series X my issues too, but they've got some interesting questions, so listen up.
Now where it's broadly parity between the two machines, even though GPU teraflops are quite different. And again, if I was Microsoft, I would be asking serious questions as to why that is the case, because we've got like on the 7nm side, it was a 360 millimeter square chip for Series X, 320 on PS5. That's a lot of extra transistors that are just not being meaningfully utilized seemingly. Just want to quickly round off this topic with a question from Josh.
So that particular clip actually of Digital Foundry asking some interesting questions, why we see parity in many of the third-party games, really, because that's the main focus here. Obviously, first-party games, we can't really compare them because they are different. But when Microsoft launched their console back in 2020, and especially when they announced the specs, and then we've seen the comparisons between Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. We were, a lot of people, including myself, we were all saying, okay, so Xbox Series X has a power narrative back, and not really back, because Xbox One X hold that performance and power crown last generation too. So, but the point was that even though that the difference may not necessarily be that big, because for example, last generation, the difference between Xbox One X and PlayStation 4 Pro were around like 40%, at least in terms of GPU power, but there were some other differences in terms of like faster CPU, there was more memory bandwidth and that kind of stuff, right? So like generally speaking, Xbox One X was way more powerful console. Now when it comes to Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, the difference has been halved. So we're talking about like 17-20% difference in terms of GPU power. And obviously that doesn't necessarily translate to 20% better games or better running games or better looking games. And yes, we do see games that, for example, offer higher resolution on Xbox Series X, whether that's 10% or 15 or 20, that depends, because it's actually difficult to describe that, because a lot of these games uses dynamic resolution scaling. So you're probably not going to see much of a difference anyway, because we're talking about like 10-15% difference. Like you really need Digital Foundry zooming in on some of these shots from games to actually see the difference. So I guess all that extra power is actually is being put into, like, it's not even being put, it's just the engine uses that extra power to run the game at slightly higher resolution, which is not really much of a benefit when it comes to these games. So that's why we see a lot of these games really, that's why people say, oh, it's parity, because it's almost is, right? Third-party developers will not really take full advantage of neither of the consoles, I would even say, because people say, oh, developers are not really taking full advantage of Xbox Series X, but I would also say that they don't really take full advantage of PlayStation 5 either. And I'm not necessarily trying to suggest that, oh, if they did, then we would see like 4K 60 frames per second with ray tracing in all games, because even if they were to take full advantage of both consoles, we're not really going to see any revolution in graphics or performance. We're just going to get we would just get better optimized and better looking games a little bit, right? I mean, even jumping from last generation to this generation, like the games are not really that different. Like they don't necessarily look that different. Yes, Horizon Zero Dawn, Forza Horizon 5 look fantastic, but looking at them, would you really say, oh, they are proper next-gen games? Probably not, and we're still waiting for these titles, right? I mean, even if you look at Spider-Man, for example, like Spider-Man from PlayStation 4 and Spider-Man now on PlayStation 5, yes, it will look better, of course it will, but it's not really that much of a difference anymore. I think that we hit that, graphics kind of spot with last generation where it's going to be really difficult to beat that unless they will compromise on, performance on other aspects of the game, I guess, right? So, but going back to the topic at hand, why developers are not taking full advantage of Xbox Series X, and like I said, PlayStation 5 too, because they don't have any interest in doing so, right? Like for them, if there's a game and they've got a vision for a game and that particular game looks and runs pretty much okay on both consoles, that's all they want to give you, right? That's all they need. That's all what they need. And the thing is that, like, yes, if you had a console, like for example, PlayStation 2 and Xbox, the OG Xbox generation, like Xbox One was actually twice at some parts of the hardware, like even 3 times more powerful, capable in some aspects than PlayStation 2, and in some games that did show, while in others not really. Why? Because like if there's a game that has been created for that particular platform, so PlayStation 2 back in the days, on Xbox back in the days you would get just like better frames and sharper image quality, better textures and stuff, but you would not see that, oh, that game looks twice as good. Like the difference would be there, but it wouldn't be as much. So now you can only imagine that like having only 20% advantage in GPU power, you're not really going to deliver that much of a difference in a game, right? Like 20% is not much. It would be different if Xbox Series X was double the power of PlayStation 5. Then you would have if it had more memory and faster CPU, would have, you would basically get better textures, more effects on the screen. So not only higher resolution, but better image, but also better graphics per se, better animation, maybe not animations, but better textures, better effects, and that kind of stuff, right? So overall, the game would look better, but you need way more power to actually see that. And I mean, it is what it is, guys. And this generation, when it comes to these base models, so Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, you're not really going to see much of a difference. Like even, I don't think that we're going to see that even like, in the future. That resolution gap is probably going to be there. And even going back to last generation, Xbox One X in comparison to PlayStation 4 games, it did offer higher resolution for the most part. There was hardly any difference in graphics. Even in first party games, you would just get high resolution of Xbox, of standard Xbox One games, right? And another point I want to make is that when it comes to like power and all the bells and whistles, when it comes to like graphics and performance, that's what first-party developers are for, really. And we haven't really seen that much with Xbox just yet. I mean, I guess you could say Forza Horizon 5 looks fantastic, and they know how to make pretty and great looking games, and great running games. But other than that, like, I mean, Hi-Fi Rush was a highly stylized game, but it was very polished, very well optimized, runs great. Starfield, yeah, but it's hard to praise them for graphics, if you know what I mean. The game looks good, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't, looking at this game doesn't make your jaw drop when it comes to graphics, if you know what I mean. And it's locked to 30 frames per second too. But I mean, Forza Motorsport, which is coming literally in like 2 weeks, even less, that's going to be a kind of game that you will be able to show and say, okay, so this is the game that is probably taking full advantage of Xbox Series X power and Xbox Series S power and all that stuff. On PlayStation, I guess Spider-Man games were always, Insomniac was always good in adding way more graphics features to their games. They might have been PlayStation 4 games, but on PlayStation 5 you always getting ray tracing and all that kind of stuff. So they are good at that too, but still the same game. So genuinely speaking, I don't expect any revolution in game graphics and stuff much. I mean, yes, the games will be prettier, of course. I mean, look at Hellblade 2, and I guess by the end of this generation, so 25, 6, 7, these years, we're going to probably see some stunning looking games, but that's always the case towards the end of generation. Look at PlayStation 4, God of War, Horizon Forbidden West. These games were groundbreaking when it comes to like graphics, for example. So yeah, it is what it is, guys. I don't expect much of a difference when it comes to graphics and performance between Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. Now, PlayStation 5 Pro is probably going to change that, but I've got actually a video cooking up in regarding that right now, so I'll probably drop that tomorrow. So I've got some thoughts on the whole PlayStation 5 Pro and Xbox Series, Xbox not having Pro model of the console. I just don't think it's a good idea not to have it, but yeah, I guess I'm different than anyone else. So guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.